Big changes over at DICE LA, the long-awaited return of DICE Stockholm to crisis-hit Battlefield 5, and the usual updates as regards weekly unlocks, playlists, and armory additions. This is your week on the Battlefield. Welcome to this episode of This Week on the Battlefield, the show where we cover news, updates, the community, and so much more all around the Battlefield franchise. As per usual, there's much to cover, so let's jump straight into it. This week, in terms of our small news ticket items then, we have Week 10 of Chapter 5 of Tides of War, Loud and Proud, featuring mostly infantry class specific tasks, that is, the likes of spotting for the scout, revives and heals for the medic, or ammo for the support class, and it allows you of course to unlock the Type 2A SMG, a mostly close quarter focused medic weapon that, while pretty good in terms of its damage output, only has a minor advantage in close quarters over the likes of the Swarmy or Tommy gun, and at medium range pretty much loses out against any of the SMGs because of its very high, comparatively speaking at least, horizontal recoil. The weekly playlist is at eye level and features team deathmatch on the 3 Pacific maps, that is of course Iwo Jima, Pacific Storm and Wake Island. Playlists focused on any of these smaller player count game modes are actually relatively rare, so if you are a fan of TDM, definitely get in on this, as it will of course be replaced by a different playlist next week. In terms of our armory update then, this week saw some new content once more added. The Tesu no Ame collection features 2 Japanese soldier skins, the regulation skin for the Type 97 tank, and the Tatsu weapon skin for the Type 100, M1 Grand, Type 99 Arisaka, and M1919A6 Browning machine gun. On an interesting side note, the background of the collection thumbnail seems to actually be from the yet unreleased 4th Pacific map, Solomon Island. The armory also currently features the Squall and Trooper Soldier sets, which can actually be purchased for company coin, so grab those while they are still available. In terms of next week then, we have week 11 of Chapter 5 of Tides of War on all channels, featuring mostly squad and outpost related tasks to coincide of course with that game mode's temporary return to Battlefield 5. It will of course allow you to unlock the Pacific Palm skin for the Type 2A, which is of course this week's unlock. Week 12, for those who have already forgotten, will be the final week of Chapter 5's Tides of War progression and will allow you to unlock the iconic M3 Grease gun for the medic. Equally and arguably more importantly, DICE will be returning next week from their 2-week winter break. How DICE now approaches the current dissatisfaction with Battlefield 5 over the next and possibly following week is, in my opinion, going to be pretty interesting and frankly quite decisive in terms of the long-term health of this community and game. Personally, I belong to those who are hoping against odds that DICE goes with the rescind, revert, repent option, but given their absolute ignorance to the state of the game and community wishes so far, I personally don't have my hopes set too high. As regards what to expect from DICE, I think it's not beyond reasonable doubt that we will get some form of communication as to what to expect over the coming weeks, both in terms of the current state of the game, but also the next chapter of Battlefield 5 and the upcoming content, how detailed that is, if we see a full 2020 roadmap or only a measly community broadcast, yet of course remains to be seen. Hopefully DICE manages to exceed expectations just this once. As regards what is the root of many of the current problems we have with Battlefield 5 on the other hand, and what needs to be done in 2020 to finally turn this game around, I posted a quite interesting video on that topic just this week, casually discussing just those things. So feel free to join the discussion on what you think needs to happen. You'll find it linked in the usual places. In industry relevant news, a segment we don't always get to talk about on the This Week on the Battlefield show, we have DICE LA, the studio credited arguably with saving and turning around Battlefield 4 and assisting the main DICE office in Stockholm with most of their major titles, not least of course the Battlefield franchise. It is actually getting a rebrand and being put under new management. Respawn co-founder Vince Zampella will be taking over there with the aim of repositioning the studio as independent and starting production on their very own titles. Now under Vince Zampella, Respawn actually developed the likes of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Titanfall and Apex Legends, so he doesn't have a bad track record at all. There isn't of course any official news just yet on what is going to be in development over at the new studio, but speculation already is brewing that we could see a new AAA shooter enter the market in a few years' time from now. As what this means regarding the Battlefield franchise, losing a co-developer surely isn't going to be good news. Now, this could have absolutely no impact as DICE Stockholm simply increases the size of their Battlefield-focused team over the coming months and weeks and stocks up the forces they've lost over at DICE LA, but it could also mean that we're stuck with a relatively unfinished Battlefield for the next couple of iterations of the franchise, given how vital DICE LA's role has been in the past in fixing and adding additional content or quality of life improvements to the various Battlefield titles. Over in our Only in Battlefield moment, starting off this week, we have the Mirrors showing us how to take out the pesky landing craft on Iwo Jima Breakthrough. Next up, we have King ERM in another installment of Perfectly Timed in Battlefield 5. Chrysler Toasty up next with this unbelievable 690-meter snipe. And to round things off this week, we have General Landon demonstrating the new anti-tank meta as support player. But with that, coming to the end of this week's episode then. If you enjoyed the show, found it interesting or entertaining, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share, and of course hit me up with your feedback, suggestions and opinions down below in the comments or over on Twitter. With all that being said, however, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next episode of This Week on the Battlefield.